In the summer of 2001, a teenage boy would disappear without a trace on his way to work. But in the years that would pass, no leads or evidence would be recovered, leading to one of the biggest mysteries in Nebraska's history.
Still no answers.
9 years ago today.
What happened to these two young children?
Remains a mystery.
Urgent story unfolding right now. Who is missing? An unsolved murder.
Jason Anthony Jolkowski was born June 24th of 1981 in Grand Island, Nebraska, to his mother Kelly, an employee at DNT, and his father Jim, a warehouse supervisor at Nebraska Furniture Mart. He also had a younger brother named Michael. 19-year-old Jason was living at home with his family on the corner of 48th and Pinckney Street in the Benson neighborhood of Omaha, Nebraska, a city on the Missouri River close to the Iowa border, with a population of just over 400,000 residents, known to be the most populous city in the state. Jason was described by loved ones as a shy, quiet boy who was funny and nice, but only had a handful of friends. A family friend named Amanda Goodman would say that Jason loved his parents and his brother more than anything in the world. And one time, when they'd been talking on the phone, he put her on hold so that he could tuck his little brother into bed. To Jason, family came first. He always believed in working things out. If there was a problem, he wouldn't have ran away from it. Jason was also said to have a learning disability that made him comprehend things a little slower than his peers, but he was noted to be extremely intelligent, later graduating high school on the honor roll. After high school, Jason went on to attend Iowa Western Community College part-time, which was located in Council Bluffs as part of a radio broadcasting program, and had goals to eventually become a radio DJ. He currently was a disc jockey at the college's radio station, 89.7 The River. I was actually able to find a recording of Jason that I will play for you now.
89.7 The River, the new music evolution. My name is JJ. We're in the middle of 8 in a row. We got music coming up from REM, Papa Roach, and whatever else you want to hear. Let me know. 323-4100 or pound for 89.7, your Verizon wireless phone. And that's how you're getting it done. That's what makes you just a little bit happier. And that's my goal around here, is to make everybody as happy as I can. There's some Search Issue from Red Hot Chili Peppers on the river.
Jason was also working at a local restaurant in town called Fazoli's, which was located at 80th Street and Cass Street. His coworkers at the radio station would say, quote, "When he was on air, he was so enthusiastic and peppy. He would do anything for anybody." End quote. While Jason covered a variety of topics on air, from music to relationships, his primary focus was on sports. He loved the Cubs, Broncos, and Huskers. He even had a knack for remembering players' names and stats. His favorite broadcasters were Bob Costas and Harry Carey. In addition to his love for sports, Jason had a strong love for God, praying a couple hours a week at Holy Name Catholic Church. At one point, he even considered becoming a priest, which would have fit his quiet, friendly demeanor. The past winter, Jason ended up dropping out of college because his family didn't have enough money for him to continue. Things had turned around, though, when Jason had landed a job as a customer service representative at Citel Corp, which was not only higher paying, it also offered a tuition program, and he was actually scheduled to start this job right after he went missing. The last time Kelly and Jim would see their son was on June 12th of 2001. That night, the family had spent the evening together, and they were playing games, specifically this game where someone would try to make all the other players laugh. And Jason always lost this game because he had a tendency to giggle. It was a happy moment that would sadly be the last. Because the following day, on June 13th, Jason would be called into work early. So like the responsible young man that he was, he tried to figure out his options to get there on time. Due to his car being at the repair shop, he initially planned on walking to work, which is located over 4 miles away from his home. But he was eventually able to make arrangements with one of his coworkers, whose name was Teresa, who offered to give him a ride. Now, Teresa didn't know exactly where Jason's home was. We have to remember this was 2001. Google Maps didn't really exist. So they made the arrangements to meet outside of Benson High School because they had both previously attended the school and it was a location that they both knew. At 10:45 a.m., Jason would last be seen by his 13-year-old brother, Michael. When he heard a noise and looked out the window to see his older brother pulling the garbage cans from the curb up to the house. It was the start of summer, so Michael was hanging out at home while their parents were at work. Two neighbors would also recount seeing Jason doing his chores with the trash. Then at some point after that, Jason, clad in his black dress pants and black dress shoes, carrying his red work shirt, would leave his home at 3425 North 48th Street to make the half-a-mile walk to the school. This 15-minute walk would take Jason down a series of quiet, tree-lined residential streets with little pedestrians or vehicle traffic. He could then walk behind Monroe Middle School to get to the high school's parking lot. Only less than an hour later, around 11:15 to 11:30 a.m., Teresa would call the Jolkowski home asking where Jason was, stating that he had failed to show up at Benson High School for that ride to work. Michael was the only one home when that phone call was placed, so he answered the phone and told Teresa what he knew, that Jason had left on foot, so no one was immediately alarmed. Both Kelly and Jim were still at work, and Jim would return home first around 3 p.m. and be informed of the situation. At first, the family believed that Jason most likely had just decided to walk to work and he would eventually turn up. Later that day, their parents would take Michael to a scheduled baseball game. But once they were done with that game and Jason still hadn't resurfaced, the family began to worry. Fearing that they had to wait 24 hours before they could report him missing, Jason's family began to call around to his friends, coworkers, and a former radio station trying to figure out if anyone had seen or heard from him, but no one had. And as day turned to night and Jason still didn't return, the realization started to settle in that something bad most likely had happened to him. It wasn't like Jason to not show up for work without telling someone or to go off without informing anyone. He had gotten ready, made the plans, and was on his way. So what stopped him before he could get to the school? Jason was said to not have any interest in partying, and he also had no involvement with drugs or alcohol. He also didn't have a girlfriend that he would sneak off with or skip work for. He was a very low-key guy. So as morning came, Kelly finally phoned the Omaha Police Department, and an officer would eventually arrive at the home to file a missing persons report. And without knowing anything about the situation, the officer would end up telling the family that Jason most likely just spent the night at a friend's house and he would turn up any moment then. And that would have been the best case scenario. But Jason would never reappear. It would take 10 days before police would finally investigate this young man's disappearance. They just assumed he was another teen runaway, even though his history showed none of that. Meaning that if there was foul play here, if someone had kidnapped Jason or something bad had happened to him, that gave the perpetrators over a week to flee, cover it up, or destroy evidence. And if the Jolkowskis knew anything, it was that Jason would not have ran away. A later check of security cameras at Benson High School showed that he never arrived on campus, and I really wish we were able to see that footage. Left behind was his car at the repair shop and his paycheck. As I noted, he even did his chores before leaving. Now, it seems like he did have a cell phone. It was 2001, so I'm not really sure what the technology was back then. But from what is noted, his bank records and his cell phone indicated that he hadn't used either his ATM card and there was no activity on his cell phone after his disappearance. $400 also remained sitting in his bank account untouched. And he only had around $60 in cash on him at the time of his disappearance. These are all bad signs when someone disappears. The Jolkowskis would tie a ribbon on the front porch of their home as a sign that they would never give up searching, others in town following suit. They would also post flyers and send out chain emails with links to a website about Jason that is no longer available. And neighbors would immediately swoop in to comfort the family. One noted to come over with a card and another offering Jim a hug of support. Another would bring ice cream and cake for Michael. Their church would also do their part by sending out prayer chains across the world. It was also mentioned that an elderly woman from Canada was even doing multiple rosary prayers a day, and she was even keeping a candle lit until Jason was found. As I said, over a week would go by where this teenager was just simply gone. And that's when police would finally begin speaking to his friends, checking his computer, and conducting interviews with neighbors. Despite mounted searches, ground searches, a helicopter, as well as infrared technology that was used, there was still no signs of Jason or any clues about his whereabouts. It is unclear, however, if tracking dogs were ever brought in to trace the route from Jason's home to Benson High School to figure out when his scent stopped. I'm very curious about that. And of course, police would rebuke that they didn't do enough. And their excuse was that in the cases of missing adults, they usually waited a while because adults had the free will to come and go. But again, when everyone in their lives is saying that this is unusual, I believe that police should do something. Let me know if you agree. Kelly would tell a local paper, quote, "There's an empty place at the dinner table, one that longs to be filled again. We need your help. We are sure someone somewhere knows something that could bring our family the answers we desperately need. Enough time has passed now that perhaps someone will remember something, or someone will decide to do the right thing." End quote. Jason's parents would do what they could over the years.
Kelly's also putting signs up in her lawn, on her lawn, and her goal is to develop a new lead concerning the whereabouts of her son. Along with the picture, she wants anyone with information to come forward. Kelly vows to continue searching until her son is found.
Some people might stop searching, but that's not us. We're never going to give up. So no matter how long it is, we're always going to continue to be creative and find new ways to get the word out about him.
There's no leads. Nobody saw anything. And, the detectives just didn't find anything. So there's no way of knowing.
That's Donita Say. She was 16 when her 19-year-old cousin disappeared. June 13th marks 20 years since Jolkowski was unexpectedly called into work and agreed to meet his co-worker at Benson High School for a ride.
And so he was last seen taking the trash cans into his house, and a neighbor saw him do that, and then his brother also looked out the window and saw him walking in the direction towards Benson, and he was never seen or heard from again.
I didn't realize it's been 20 years. That's a long time.
Chester Link, a former neighbor, says he was one of the last people to see him that day walking towards the school.
I don't understand how someone could just vanish with no trace, no foul play, nothing like that.
There's a tree at Roberts Park planted off the Keystone Trail in honor of Jolkowski. Sunday afternoon, friends, families, and neighbors gathered to share memories, paint and hide rocks with the hashtag #FindJasonJ.
I remember one time he had this idea to do a popsicle race as which color would melt the fastest. And I know red won.
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children created an age progression photo that shows what Jolkowski would look like now at the age of 39.
Someone does know something. We need someone to come forward and help.
Rallying to spread the word on their son's disappearance despite little to no clues as to where he went or what happened to him. In 2003, his parents would found Project Jason, a nonprofit support group to assist families of missing children. At the end of 2004, Kelly and Jim appeared on the Montel Williams show in hopes that it would bring new leads. In 2005, after lobbying by his parents, Jason's Law was passed by Nebraska legislature, providing for a statewide database on missing persons. And Kelly would also become a huge advocate for missing persons. It would turn out that nobody had told her to provide Jason's toothbrush or comb for DNA. And by the time she learned about the importance herself, it was too late. Stating, quote, "Things fall through the cracks. Families aren't told to get vital pieces of information that could help them solve the case." End quote.
Like they say, the light's on, so we're always waiting.
A father waits on his doorstep for a sign, for a miracle. June 13, 2001, Jason Jolkowski left this house to meet a friend a few blocks away.
Between here and Benson, something happened, somebody saw something.
In Benson's parking lot, that friend would wait, but Jason never showed.
All we need is one little break to help us out.
No break, just broken hearts.
Rely on the people that are in the same situation that you lean on and help you to get by.
The Jolkowskis help other parents too through Project Jason online. And it was on this site that Kelly Jolkowski connected with the parents of the missing Ohio girls, helping in the search and standing by whenever a parent broke down. Monday afternoon, Amanda Berry called for help, freeing herself, a 6-year-old girl, and 2 other women, all held captive for a decade. Jolkowski says this is why you never give up.
And no matter how hard it was, they kept trying to find them.
A bittersweet moment for Jolkowski. She became close friends with Barry's mom, Luana Miller. But Miller died, never knowing where Amanda was. Jolkowski wants Luana to know her daughter is safe.
Luana, Amanda is a fighter just like you, and she's going to continue to fight through this journey of her recovery, and now you can truly be at peace.
And the years would pass on and on without answers.
Investigators say Jason Jolkowski
disappeared without a trace from Omaha.
A former neighbor says he was one of the last people to see him.
Kelly would later receive a Volunteer for Victims award from U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, as well as the Nebraska Governor's Point of Light Award, in recognition for her work to support families of missing people. And that's honestly all the information we have on Jason's case. There's not much. It's been over 20 years since Jason disappeared without a trace. He never made it to the school, according to the surveillance camera footage, which means that something most likely happened to him between his home and before the school. Something must have happened to him during his walk there, and the question is, what could that have been? As you can see by the footage that someone captured walking the exact route that Jason took, it's pretty unlikely that Jason was hit by a car and the accident covered up in broad daylight. This is a very heavily populated residential area. However, it's the quiet suburbs. Jason was also noted to be a tall young man who wouldn't have been easily picked up and hidden, especially if he was dead weight. And with so many homes around, you'd think someone would have reported the noise or someone would have heard something if he was hit by a car or if there was some kind of disturbance, like someone yelling at him and arguing with him to get in or threatening him. The most likely scenario seems to be that Jason was most likely convinced to get into a vehicle, possibly by someone he was familiar with that offered to drive him where he needed to go, or possibly offered to drive him to the school to meet his coworker. What happened to him after that, unfortunately, probably was not good, especially for him to have never been heard from again. The strange thing is, Jason wasn't a child. He was a 6-foot-tall young man, and a young man who, from all accounts, didn't have any enemies. He lived a very quiet life. It's not like he did drugs, maybe had a drug debt, or, had gotten into a fight with someone. Just looking at this all objectively with the information we do have, Jason's profile is one of the least likely to get kidnapped. Yet somehow, he just vanished during that walk. What individual with dark intentions could have been lurking on that quiet residential street that Jason was walking down? Or it makes me wonder as well, could he have been lured to someone's home? Maybe someone along that route he knew that told him to come up to his door. Maybe they had something for him, and then they did something bad. And are they still lurking those streets today? Jason is described as a Caucasian male standing 6 foot 1 inches tall, weighing approximately 160 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a blue Cubs baseball cap, a white Chicago Cubs or Sammy Sosa t-shirt, black dress shirt, black dress shoes, and was carrying a red work shirt. There are no leads or suspects in Jason's case to this day. If you have any information as to what happened to Jason, please contact the authorities. I'll have the information down below. It has been decades too long that this family has not had answers. And if you have any more information on this case, let's chat about it down below. Let me know what you think. My heart goes out to this family. I truly, truly hope Jason is eventually found. And as always, I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors, and I hope to see you in the next video.